Hmm. Welcome back to the Growth Hacking Culture podcast. Look around your office, look at your industry, look at the news. The conversation is always the same. AI is coming for your job. Automation is moving faster than any of us can learn. And for most professionals, the feeling is one of change fatigue, anxiety, or just a chronic sense of being chronically unready. But what if staying ahead of AI wasn't about mastering the latest tech, but about mastering your mindset? And by the way, this little sentence, I stole it from Allister. Today, we are joined by a visionary who has spent 3 decades navigating digital transformation, a former Microsoft leader, and the author of the essential new book, Ready Already, the future ready mindset to keep up, stand out, and shape what's next. He's the man who created the Frost model, and he's going to tell us about it, and champions the three essential AI defeating human superpowers: curiosity, creativity, and courageous communication. Allister Frost, welcome to the show. It is a pleasure to have you with me.
Thank you, Ivan. It's lovely to be here. I'm really looking forward. I love talking about this stuff, and I wanted to share with people some tips to help them avoid obsolescence. I think that's the greatest risk of all right now. So we'll talk about lots of stuff, I'm sure.
Yes, I think we have lost a lot of our confidence with this AI, right? It's not enough to catch up with the latest tool. And I think that, and I'm going to be open with you. I even think that AI is capable to match our capacity for creativity, for curiosity. These are things that you speak about it, and sometimes I don't. I feel it like if it is a copy and paste of how our brain functions, maybe we are not that essential. Maybe we are not quite unique, Alistair.
Well, that's a big question to start with, isn't it? Look, fundamentally, I disagree with you. AI works in dramatically different ways to our wonderful biological human brains. Look, we don't even know how the human brain works. We know more about it every year, of course, and I'm not going to pretend to be a brain expert by any stretch of the imagination, but we don't know how we perform many of the functions that we have already. And I think the way to think about AI, it does look as if it is human-like intelligence. It seems to deserve that intelligent part of artificial intelligence. But is it? I liken it to a magic trick. If you go and see a table magician and they do a card trick in front of you, something like
Yeah.
that, it's really good, isn't it? And you watch it and you think, that's amazing. He made the card go from there to there, and then it was behind my ear. It's like, wow. And you kind of want to believe it because it would be really cool if it was true. But really that it's not entirely real. You know that there was some trickery, something happened. And I think we need to look at AI with a similar way. You use AI and you ask it a question, you think, that is such a good answer. I would never have got that myself. And you want to believe that it's real. This is where you have to sort of be like someone who's watching a magician and be honest and say, hang on, is that real? No, it's not real. AI is a magic trick, I think, that the tech companies are playing on us. They've created this thing that has human-like behaviors, even the way it presents itself. It writes the answer in front of you. It does start. They've designed this thing that lures you into thinking it's human, it's thinking, it's using biological processing. No, it isn't. It's just pattern matching at scale using incredible amounts of energy to give you the answer that you need. So while it's wonderful, and I use it every day, same as many other people, it will, I do not believe, ever be equal to human capabilities with intelligence. It will have better memory, better, faster, of course, many things, but it won't be able to do what we can do when we use our brains alongside AI.
Let me understand correctly your sentence. So what you mean is that it will not be able to match the standard capabilities of human beings. So you take the standard person, a person like me. So I, in creativity, I'm able to connect a little bit of experience, a little bit about the weird talks that I have with people who are artists. I do extrapolations, in fact, and AI can do the same. So is it capable of matching my capacities, or are you talking about the exceptional, the top 0.1% who is really creative, who thinks in a broader terms, the philosophers, the real artists who create from
Yeah,
nothing? What are
yeah.
you talking about then?
I am talking about the average person. I'm not talking about the Einsteins of the world. I'm talking about the average person. When we use our brains fully, and when we're actively exercising them properly, we can do things that AI cannot. And there are some things, and you referred to them in the intro, that I call superpowers. There are some things that I don't personally believe AI will ever do as well as us. But again, just to be clear, I'm not beating up on AI. I think it's wonderful. I think AI, obviously, we know it stands for artificial intelligence, but actually, I tend to think of it as augmented intelligence. That's a better way of thinking about it, because artificial that was just from science fiction. That's a strange phrase that we've come on to. When it's augmented intelligence, it can augment something. And what it augments is me. AI on its own is completely useless. It cannot think for itself. It doesn't understand the breadth of the problems that the world has. But if I feed it the right prompts and so on, it can augment my intelligence. It will augment my understanding. So if you take one of my superpowers, you mentioned them, is curiosity, right? Again, we don't understand how humans do curiosity, but we do know that it's a remarkable ability that we have ahead of many other species of animals on Earth. And humans are biologically motivated to be curious. I mean, it comes from an instinct to survival instinct, right? How am I going to find food? How am I going to be safe? So it's a self-preservation survival instinct. And it's an innate ability that we have to look at the situation and to be curious about alternative possibilities. If you compare that process, which we don't fully understand, to what large language models do, they are only curious, if I even dare to use that word, through computational algorithmic models that are designed to minimize the uncertainty in the answer and to maximize the utility to the person who's asking, right? That's what a large language model seeks to give you, a good enough answer that's not completely nuts. that's what it's doing, right? And as such, large language models, they can only be, I suppose, reactively curious in response to a prompt. They use patterns that are found in objective data to try to create sense out of possibilities. Humans can be curious just for the joy of being curious. It's driven by emotions, consciousness. It's driven by the lived experience. So you know how children, and I use this example a lot in the book as well, because I think it's the best way to start with curiosity. Kids ask why all the time, don't they? Little children. Think of a 5-year-old that you'll be going out and they say, why do I have to wear a coat? Because it's cold. Okay. Why is it cold? Because it's the winter. Oh, why do I have to wear shoes? Because your feet will go. They just ask questions all the time. Now, children do that because it's an innate ability because they want to feel safe in the world and they want to make sense of things. Now, we lose some of that curiosity as we get older because we learn that things are the way they are and we stop questioning why things are the way they are. So that's the sort of curiosity that I think a human being who really embraces this ability can bring to their world of work, to their life, and they can ask the right questions born out of something biological that happens in our brain, not having to rely on going to a chat GPT or whatever and to sort of feed it the parameters and then see what everybody else has done in the past. Do you see the difference? I'm not a brain expert, so I can't explain it in sort of in scientific terms as well as somebody else might do. But a computer will only examine why things are the way they are when it's given instructions to do so. It's a reactive, it's an outcome-oriented curiosity, I suppose. Whereas a human, we're capable of questioning things just for the joy that comes from exploring it, just from the joy of feeding a sense of wonder or interest. Do you collect anything? Do you have a collection?
Oh, what do I collect? Well, I want to say books.
Oh, okay.
And the reason is that I'm curious. I like answering questions, any questions, by the way.
Yeah.
I have a science background, so I'm
Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
into trying to understand. And then I went into philosophy a little bit, just because I wanted to understand the famous why am I here. Uh,
Yeah. So
I
books is
collect
a
a lot
great
of
answer. Of all the things to look, people collect all kinds of things, don't they? Stamps, cigar tubes, I mean, autographs, whatever, right? But as humans, we have the capacity to be endlessly fascinated by something. You know, people can get obsessive about their collecting. I've got to get that collect that version of that first edition of that book because we're obsessed with we love the wonder of the book, the wonder of the thing. Now, I'm not saying you're going to find that same level of excitement necessarily in your day-to-day work,
Mm.
but if you can use your curiosity to ask questions about how things could be better, what could we do to make changes, how could we keep up with competitors and go faster, then I think that's a much more useful curiosity than what you'll get from a large language model. It's a different thing.
Indeed. Alistair, what you say struck me. So this curiosity that is being reduced when we become adult. I never thought really about it, but it is totally true.
Mm.
And I was wondering if the reason is because when we are adult, we want to become efficient, whatever is efficient. If efficient, that means
Mm.
that if I ask too many questions, I will not get anything done.
Mm.
Or I will only answer questions that somebody pay me for, like my employee,
Yeah.
my boss is. And maybe that's what makes that we are a little bit more boxed with curiosity instead of asking ourselves any type of questions. And by the way, just a personal highlight in parentheses is that I became again curious when I stopped being an employee. When I
Yes.
started working for myself, I became again curious because I was doing it
Yeah.
for me in order
You're,
to
you're,
heal
you
from employment.
yeah, you're hitting on something really important. And again, when I give keynote talks about this stuff, and in my book as well, I write about it. And it's that kids ask why because they want to feel safe in the world. I've talked about that already. But adults stop asking why very quickly because it carries some degree of embarrassment. And what I try to do, the exercise I try to get people to do, is to go into their workplace like they've never been there before, like it's the first day in the job, but to look at it with childlike eyes and ask why, and just ask questions of things, even just the layout of the desks, even the layout of the room, the noise that you hear, the smell, just be aware of things and ask, why is it like that? Now, you don't have to do this out loud. You can actually do this exercise in your own brain, but it allows you to start seeing things and to realize that things could be different. They don't have to be the way they are. And in week one in the job, in a new job, most of us will ask lots of questions because we're sort of like trying to make sense of it, and it's okay to ask questions. Week two, there comes a point for all of us where you're sort of like, oh, probably, I don't understand that, but I don't want to ask because I'm going to look silly. I'll save that one. I'll ask my friend, or I'll look it up later on online. I'll ask AI to tell me what that is. Now, there's something really dangerous with that in a world that is moving as quickly as our own world, because the minute you stop questioning the way things are, is the moment you accept that they are the way they are and they will be forever unless somebody changes it. Now, when the world is moving this quickly, you need to be asking lots of questions. You need to be challenging the status quo, because if you don't, every other company on earth is probably doing that, and you're going to get left behind. And so now you're running your own business. There's a difference here. You're invested in it. You can ask the questions. You can be curious. You can be brave, because it's in your interest financially, but just for status and a sense of achievement, to be a bit more bold. That's what's happened. It's given you permission to ask questions again.
Now, everybody complains that there is no time to because we are overwhelmed with work, with stuff, family, Eh,
Mm.
My question to you is there a way like to craft a habit that we can in order to train our brain to be curious and at the same time efficient, because we are not going to ask only silly questions about the stars when it has no real outcome to ourselves.
Yeah.
Is there a way to train our brain on that?
Well, I don't know about train our brain. There's ways to get back to it, to rediscover your wonder in the world, your sense
Yes.
of wonder. And I mean, I've already given you one tip, which is around look at your world like a child. And I really mean like a child. Imagine you're 5 years old. What are all the questions that a 5-year-old would ask an adult if they felt comfortable in your workplace? They'd ask, why is that desk bigger than that desk? Just do it for the workplace. Why is there a fire extinguisher there? What's that button do? Just start to realize all of the things around you. And in doing that, this is one of the superpowers in my model. I call it open. What happens when we are courageous enough to have naive curiosity like a child? We open our minds. We sort of flip open our minds. And when we say, why is there a fire extinguisher there? It's a terrible example, but go with me. We open our minds to the possibility there might be something other than a fire extinguisher there. It doesn't have to be a fire extinguisher. It could be a flower or an umbrella stand, or, I'm not, there is probably a reason there's a fire extinguisher there, but you've never questioned why that is. It's just there. And you assume that that's the right place for it because it's there. You don't know. Somebody might have moved it there because they didn't want it by their desk. So I'm not saying, please, if anyone's listening in, do not go out and move the fire extinguishers. They're probably there for a reason. But if you ask the question, you open your mind to the possibility, it could be something else. It doesn't have to be on the floor. It could be on a stand. It could be a different type of fire extinguisher. Maybe it could be in a different place that would be more convenient for everybody. And that's literally just me plucking an idea out of the air to sort of illustrate what I'm trying to say is, but when you apply that to your work, you say, well, why do I reply to emails? Why do I attend a meeting? Why do I have a notebook? Why do I carry my laptop around? Whatever it is, you can question everything. And the minute you do, you open your mind to the scenario that, maybe I don't have to go to meetings. Maybe I could go to half the meeting. Maybe I could go to the meeting and stand up instead of sit down. Maybe, yeah, of course you could. There's all these things that are possibilities, but we lose sight of them because we stop thinking for ourselves. So that's something I would recommend. The other thing, if that's, because that's sometimes people struggle with that, a really easier level is literally just go and pursue a novel experience for the sake of pursuing them, right? So if you take a commute every day, you commute to your workplace, do it differently. Tomorrow, do it differently. Take a different mode of transport, take a different route, leave at a different time, whatever you like, dress differently. If we all go to the coffee shop and get the same coffee all the time, maybe. Okay, go in and get a drink that you would never choose, the one on the menu you would never have. Read a different style of book to what you're used to. Tune into, no, obviously this is the best podcast, but tune into other podcasts. Try something new. Do something random. But the important thing is, as you drink that different drink, that matcha latte or whatever you've ended up ordering, observe how it makes you feel. Think about why this is a possibility. Think about how that is different, and is it better or worse? It doesn't matter. What it is it's something else. And then you can go into work and you can start looking for things that could be improved because they're everywhere. There's nothing that makes sense in most businesses when you start to peel away the layers. So you've just got to find that courage.
Alistair, you are talking, and I have the image of that person that I met in my previous life in corporate job, of this person who was asking the weird questions. He was a lawyer by background, and he succeeded to climb all the ladders possible. He's now vice president in that corporation, and he used to ask the type of questions that a child would ask. And I was impressed and I also noticed that he had the courage because he wasn't ashamed of anything, asking the simplest question: why do we have to sell to that specific store? How are we transporting the things? Simple questions that, in principle, anyone would assume everybody knows, but he was, and that's what I feel allow him to understand and do things differently. And by the way, get the admiration of a lot of people to have because you need courage, balls to go.
It takes courage. Yeah, it does take courage. And I remember when I joined Microsoft from a very traditional manufacturing business. And honestly, the tech sector is crazy because the language, it's all acronyms and everything's
Yeah.
changing every 3 days. It's just ridiculous. And whilst I learned to love that world eventually, in the early days, it was really confusing. It's like all these 3-letter acronyms for everything. Nothing made any sense. But I would routinely, and it became one of my favorite things to do. I'd been there for 10 years and I'd still interrupt someone in a meeting, put my hand up and say, sorry, what does that mean? I have no idea what you're talking about. And just be honest. It's okay. Because if I'm feeling that, I don't think I'm the only person in the room who's thinking that. I'm sure there are others. And what was really interesting, Ivan, is I've discovered that sometimes nobody else in the room actually knew what they were talking about either. You'd ask what an acronym stood for. You say, what does that letter stand for? And people would sort of look at them and say, I'm not actually sure. What does it stand for? And we were all using the acronym for something. We didn't know what the actual words were it stood for. Now, I'm not saying that was the most critical thing to know, but it was encouraging, I think, to ask the question and realize, oh, I'm not the only person, but I am the only who doesn't understand it. But I am the only person who had the courage to say, can we please try to understand this at more than a sort of wafer thin layer of understanding? Let's go a little bit deeper. Why is it called that? What's it for? Why does this matter? So yeah, your lawyer friend was asking those questions to understand the world. And the minute you stop asking those questions, your understanding of things is limited to where you got to. It's not going to grow, right? So when everything is changing, you have to admit you're a learner-tool. You want to know.
I want to move to the other pillar that is mentioned in your book, creativity, which for me is often linked to divergent thinking. And today, in fact, we see that AI is catching up really quickly. You can generate more than 100 novel product concept in 30 seconds. And the question is, if we had to define, because we also think in the way as AI extrapolating, creating ideas that are not in the from that come from a different context. Um, is human creativity, if we had to define what could be unique and that is non-replicable by AI, is it more about generating these ideas, or is it more about having the courage to champion and execute a bad or a risk, taking risk, in fact, for the idea, because AI will not execute anything.
True.
It's about us, and sometimes in the risk there is so much gains, or what makes human beings really humans. And when I say risk, it's not about just the idea, it's about taking a decision, I don't know, to save a life or
Sure.
to stand for our belief despite power telling us, no, you have to believe this area, not that area. what, what,
So
what, what do you think?
I separate out curiosity from creativity in my model quite very deliberately. Curiosity, as I've already explained, is about opening your mind. Curiosity doesn't give you a solution. All curiosity does is it shows you, oh, things don't have to be the way they are. So if you're using why about the fire extinguisher example, whatever, you've opened your mind to the possibility there could be something, maybe there could be something else there, or it could be presented differently, whatever. Creativity then is where, like you say, it's divergent thinking. It's about putting together two or more things, two different concepts, and coming up with an alternative. So yes, we could have a sign above it which says fire extinguisher here, so everyone knows where it is. We could have it levitating. We could have it, we could have it spinning around. I don't know. So anything that's creativity, right? But AI is brilliant at generating, as you say, hundreds of solutions very, very quickly. But again, those ideas are pattern matching. They can be randomized to some extent, but when we go random with a large language model, it is genuinely random rather than being something that is filtered through the human conscience and actually has some pre-qualifying characteristics to it. So human creativity tends to be slightly constrained by what is reasonable, what is feasible, what is plausible and sensible. So AI can generate all of these ideas in seconds, but we don't need, most of us don't need more ideas. We need better ideas,
Mm-hmm.
I would say. And so AI will give you as many millions of ideas. You can keep running it all day long. Give me more ideas. Give me more ideas. They'll keep coming, coming, coming. All you've got is a massive list of ideas. And then you've still got to go through all of those and pick out the one that's right. And if you ask the large language model for which one it thinks is best, good luck, because it's just guessing based on, again, pattern matching at scale. So, and worse still, I would say, a lot of the ideas that AI can generate, because again, it's pattern matching, they seem like novel ideas to us. It surfaces things. Think, oh, I would never have thought of that. Well, you don't know. You might have done had you put in the effort. You might have thought of that. Chances are you probably would have thought of something better if you'd tried. So I suppose AI's ideas and creativity, they're mathematically novel. They're statistically novel. Because they're about massive amount of data. They're novel to you and they're novel to others because that's the way the model works. But it's very unlikely, and of course, it's unlikely that anyone in your company has ever had those exact ideas either. But none of those ideas that a large language model will give you have gone through the filter of your brilliant human mind so that they can be gently steered, I suppose, towards something that's feasible or useful or valuable. They're just a load of ideas. And I know you can prompt engineer and say, don't give me ideas about this and and try and narrow it down. That AI is a great tool to aid creativity, but it is not creative in its own right. It's just random things put together in an unexpected way that appears novel to you because you haven't seen it before. It's a magic trick. So it's the same thing. Now, the converse to that, of course, is that human beings, when we have ideas, we routinely kill off a lot of ideas because we think, oh, we could do that. Oh, no, the boss wouldn't approve that. We could do that. Oh, no, I'd never get the budget for that. Oh no, I haven't got time for that. And what we tend to do is almost the opposite of AI. We can have good ideas, but we will kill them off because we think, oh, that's never going to happen. I'll never be. It's too difficult. So somewhere between your large language model, which is massive volumes of ideas, a lot of them are hopelessly irrelevant and inappropriate. There's no self-awareness in there or filtering whatsoever, but it's a machine that can churn out ideas. Brilliant. And then on the other side, you've got human beings who very slow with creativity. It's tiring, it's exhausting. We have to keep going for a break. Most of the ideas are very cautious, they're very safe. And we censor them ourselves as well. We censor our own ideas. We kill our own ideas. Somewhere between those two is kind of where you want to be. So I say use AI because it will help give you the volume. But use your own brain, your own creativity to sort of pull out the things that are relevant and steer it in a way that will help you to have an idea that you can believe in. Does that? It's a bit Goldilocks, really, isn't it? Like it's like this one's too hot, this one's too cold. It's somewhere in the middle. That's what we want. We want that solution in the middle where we can thrive alongside AI. But no, we're much more than just implementing ideas. To come back to your question, we're not just about doing the ideas because AI can't. No, you have to have a role in creating the ideas, because then you'll believe in them, and then you'll make them happen.
Is there a way, because trying to overcome this challenge that we have as humans about the inner critic is natural, of course. We are afraid of doing certain things. We want to protect ourselves. This is a very human pattern. Is there a technique in order to overcome this inner critical that does not allow us to explore these ideas and really get the sense if they are valuable, or at least to create a prototype, to give it a shot?
Yeah,
Advice.
and again, I separate curiosity from creativity because curiosity opens your mind to the fact that things don't have to be the way they are forever. They could be different. Creativity gives you some ideas that might replace it, and that might give you an alternative. It might be something, a new product, a new solution, whatever. What we need to do is, in the creative process, is allow our ideas to grow for a little longer, to basically delay that killing off of ideas. So in the book, what I talk about is try to just, when you're being creative, and I call it surprise, you want to surprise yourself with the magnitude of your thinking, right? Just go there, be bold. Don't constrain your ideas to what the boss will like or to what you think is feasible or you'll get budget for or whatever the constraints are in your world. Just go wild, have ideas, and allow those ideas to sort of dance around in your mind for a few days. Don't feel like, oh, I've got an idea, right, I now need to implement it. Sleep on them, go for a jog, whatever you do, have a bath. You know, people have ideas in the best places. So in the places that are right for them. So sanctify that creative process, I would say, is the first thing. So so if you're creative in the bath, go and have a bath. I know that sounds ridiculous, but I ask so many audience people. I've said, audiences, where are you most creative? You know, people go, oh, when I'm exercising, or when I'm walking the dog, or when I'm having a bath, I'm in the shower, or when I'm in bed, or no one. In my years of asking this question, no one has ever said in meeting room 3B at the end of the corridor with the flip chart. No, because nobody's creative in there. It doesn't work. So sanctify the creative process. And then don't be concerned by getting external validation for your ideas. Let the ideas be crazy. And then my third superpower, after curiosity and creativity, I call it tell. Give those ideas to a few colleagues with the brief that they need to try to make them, bring them back to reality. Their job is to make them better, make the ideas better, not necessarily sort of kill them down into some sort of small, poor idea that's not worth doing, but to try to keep the original, the scale of the idea, but to help you to make it better, help you to make your ideas better. And the minute you do that, you buy yourself permission to allow your brain to do what it does best, which is having brilliant, wild ideas that might be practical in the end. And you give the responsibility of making the ideas valid and correct to other people to work with you. I call that a tell. It's a tell session. You tell people what you've been doing. You say, I had this curious moment. I thought this. I had this mad idea. Here's an idea for you. It's not a very good idea, but could you help me make it better? My idea is we should have levitating fire extinguishers. You know, no, actually, they should be drone controlled so that if there's a fire, the fire extinguisher automatically move towards the fire, the source of the smoke. Look at that. I just had an idea. That's my idea. And everyone's going to go, you're mad. That's now never, it's too complicated. No. So what I try to encourage in the tell is brief your friends to say, if you're responding to my idea, you must start with yes and. Don't start with no, but that will cost too much. No, because that won't work. If you say yes and, you've got to make the idea better. You've got to be additive and constructive. So again, it's another cognitive trick that we're trying to play on our human brains to stop us killing off the brilliance of an idea, but to try to steer it gently towards something that may be realistic and feasible.
You made me think about one of the horrible moments in my corporate life is when there was these one-day brainstorming sessions. And you mentioned it, creative process depends a lot on the location, and we have the best ideas in crazy locations. And these brainstorming moments of one day of intense stress, it was generating zero creative value. Zero, because everybody was stressed. There was timings for everything, and nobody could have a beautiful and nice, simple idea. And on top, sometimes it wasn't that you could prepare before going to the brainstorming sessions. No, you had to come on the spot. My God, and that best practice has been used for years and years, and it's still being by many companies, and it doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work. And that's why. So the process that I write about in the book is very much unique to each person. It's your future, is what I say. So you need to create your future, right? So focus on something that matters to you and your work. That's something that truly lives in your heart, that you believe will help you earn your success in the service of others. That's the personal mission I talk about in my book. But then you can explore things, you can learn things, you can be curious about alternatives, you can be creative with coming up with some ideas all on your own. right? And the best people are capable of doing that in their own time, or on a break or whatever, if they take it seriously. You're not going to be creative when the boss says, let's have a brainstorming session, because it's never worked and it never will. But what you can do is then create a better type of brainstorming session where you get a few of your most trusted friends, not the boss. You don't need the boss. Go to the boss later. Get a few people and have a tell session, as I call it, and literally just describe the process you've been going through as you've worked through the process in my book. So I was really interested in how we could use AI to improve customer service. I learned this. I did this thing. I had this discovery. I was really curious, and I thought, why is it called customer service? And what do other companies call it? And actually, I then had this idea. Maybe we could rebrand as this, whatever. But then they have to respond yes and. So when you say, my idea is we're going to rebrand customer service as gooseberry juice, or whatever daft idea you had. We're going to call it the gooseberry juice department. And what do you think? And people have to say yes. And that's really wild. We need to get some good publicity for this change, wouldn't we? So everyone knows about it. Yes, and the team could all wear gooseberry outfits. Yes, and now, then you're not asking your team members just to indulge your creative fantasy or your terrible idea. You're asking them to try to help you explore ways that it might become a reality. And sometimes you get to the end of that and you say, actually, that whole gooseberry idea was terrible. It makes no sense. Obviously, because I just made it up. But that's a terrible idea. Maybe there's something else. But that's the process that we can go through. And that it's only really until that you need to involve other people. You can do everything else on your own, or with a few trusted friends if you need support. It's everyone learns differently. Everyone's creative differently.
Now, the last step for going from this mind openness, this curiosity side that we need to have, then the creativity in order to find solutions that are worthwhile implementing, is having the courage or being bold enough to convince a guy who lives on survival. This guy reached there and now
Boss,
he's scared to let it go. He doesn't want to let go his bonuses, his good salary. So why is he going to listen to you when you are coming with an idea that is risky, that he hasn't heard before?
Well, that's why I think it's important that the process does get a few of your friends on side at the end, right? So you're never alone, right? I've done this process. I've thought this thing. We had a brainstorming meeting, if that's what you want to call it, boss, and we realized that it was feasible. Then you've got to go from what if to let's try. You want to get the boss to say, yeah, okay, you can do that. Let's have a go. I think every boss is different. This is where the psychology of organizations comes into play, whether it's a boss or it's the client. If you're someone like me, you've got to try to understand their motivations and what their buttons are. But fundamentally, you've got to establish some sort of shared goal. I'm not just pursuing this idea because it's the thing that I care about. No, it's something that we both care about. We both agree that we need to reduce the number of customer complaints, right? I share your goal there. So this is why I've been doing this. Share more facts, the data, and find things that back up why this is going to be relevant, why this is going to work. So it's not about emotional. It's not about, I just really love my idea. Please, can I do my idea? No, it's about, based on the data that we've got, we can see that customer complaints have increased by blah, blah, blah. And if I looked at some of the other competitors, then they're going down. I think we have an opportunity to reduce it by this amount. And then, rather than just presenting your solution, which is a mistake I made so many times, and I got pushed back because they're like, oh, no, I think we'll go with the alternative, or I think I want to get another team to look at this. Try to make your solution their solution. So help them to own the idea. So, just get them involved in the process. We've come up with, as a team, we came up with an initial idea, but this market really well. I really want to get your thoughts on which option is best, and give them a couple of options. Sometimes, because I'm an advertising guy, you always give 3 options, and 2 of them are terrible, but one of them is okay. So, you've got to be smart if you're in an organization. You can't just go to the boss with one idea and expect them to say, yeah, brilliant, that'll do, that's good enough. They want skin in the game. They want to feel like they own it and so on. So I think when it comes to execution, which I don't really cover much in the book, my whole thesis, my ready already thesis is that you need to go through a process, repeated process to keep up, to learn about what's new to you, and to have the courage to have some ideas. But then how you make it work in each organization for each boss, that's really the stuff of, that's management and leadership in action, right? You've got to figure that stuff out for yourself. That's a separate book, I would suggest.
Mm. Now, thinking about this CEO who was standing in his beautiful office, big office. Let's imagine that. He has
Yeah.
heard about all these innovation processes, methodologies, agile design thinking, lean startup. Now we have AI that can help us augment our capabilities.
Mm.
What would be your message to this CEO in order to make his organization future ready?
Or my suggestion would be the leader. They need to start with some humility. The first rule of becoming future ready, if you like, is that you need to accept that you don't have the answers. And I call them the hippos in my talk, the highest paid person's opinion, right? So
Yes.
that the boss is always that person in the meeting. And I hate that moment. I used to hate it at Microsoft as well, when everybody's head would turn to the end of the table to see what the boss would say, and they'd pass judgment on it. When we're creating the future and the world is moving as quickly as it is no longer reasonable to expect that the leader, the boss, the hippo, has all the answers. They don't. They are as confused as everybody else. I did not get better at predicting the future as I became more senior. In fact, I would say, Ivan, I probably got worse because I became less attached to reality, more used to my big office and the sort of the lifestyle I was living, and I was distanced from the customers and from the realities of life. So the most important thing is you've got to have some humility and some honesty as a leader to say, I don't know. I don't have the answers, but I will create a culture where we can get everybody on side, where everybody can have ideas and can contribute. And then you've got the basic foundation then for a culture where future readiness can happen, because you abandon all the protectionism, all of the investment that we have in the status quo. You let go of the fact that what got you here is what will keep you here. It won't. What got you here is done. It's in the past. You've got to prove yourself again and again and again. And the minute we do that, we're all up for the challenge together.
Hmm. That's beautiful. Alistair, so how can people reach you out to talk about innovation, creativity, human centricity in this wall of AI being future ready? How can they reach you out?
Oh, well, look, if anybody's listened to this, I love talking about this stuff. If anyone is struggling with keeping up, making sense of change, or maybe they've just got, change management program that's slow and people are not moving with the times and people protecting the status quo, then they should get in touch. I mean, we mentioned my book, which is called Ready Already. It's a really short little read. It's got a model in there that is absolutely designed to get you working fast. It's not about, you're going to have to spend 6 months to learn this thing. Literally, you can go through the book in a couple of sessions and get all of this stuff. And then also you can reach out to me if you go online. If you go to readyalready.me, that's me, that will take you to a page that's got details of the model, of how it works, things that you can do to get started. And I love hearing from people as well. So if I can help you with a talk at an event or a workshop, or just giving you a bit of encouragement, just let me know.
Thank you, Alistair, so much for making the time for my audience. It was wonderful to speak to you. I like the angle that you have taken in order to make innovation more driven by humans. You haven't been talking processes, which I love because I had enough of all these processes for innovation. It's more about the people. If you enable them, then innovation really happens.
Mm.
Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you so much for having me.